And welcome back. When it comes to explaining Israel's growing influence in the world, no one does it better than Eli Hazan. He's the Foreign Affairs Director for Prime Minister Netanyahu's Likud party, and I sat down with him recently in Jerusalem to discuss how Israel is winning its war against the haters and gaining new allies around the world. Take a look. The Saudis, the Egyptians, the Jordanians, the Gulf states, they're not so much seeing Israel as a threat anymore as they are Iran. Can you talk about some of the common interest that Israel shares with its Sunni Arab neighbors in the region right now?
First of all, it's historically, because if you compare the situation right now, the political situation right now in Israel, than it used to be 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 60 years ago, it's something revolutionary, I would say. Now, we find out with the Sunni states that we have a lot of interest not only against Iran, but in general, we belong to the same sphere. We have the American alliance with Trump administration, and then we understood we have to work together. Now, Israel has been opened ever since I remember myself, and then the Sunni understood it as well. Of course, we need the American help, the Trump administration help against the agreement with Iran, and we cannot make it without the Americans. Some of the leaders of the world, such as Putin from Russia, I believe Merkel from Germany, they are pro-Israeli, I know that. But on the other hand, they give Iran more legitimacy. Right. And that's a problem. Not for the Israelis, for the world itself.
For the world, and now, Eli, that ISIS is being crushed slowly but surely in Syria, there will be a vacuum. And Iran is looking to fill that vacuum and have that land corridor from Tehran stretching all the way to the Mediterranean. And as you said, that's not just a threat to Israel, obviously on your doorstep, but to the world and to the West.
Exactly. This is why Netanyahu met with Putin a few times in the last years. In order to prevent this kind of threat, we must protect ourselves. This is what we do. This is our interest. And again, it goes with the interest of the United States.
Eli, in 2009, Prime Minister Netanyahu accepted the premise of a two-state solution. The Obama administration obviously hounded him relentlessly to make concessions to the Palestinians. Number one, what's the status of that now under the Trump administration? And number two, can you talk a bit about the Palestinian Authority incitement and that culture of hatred that makes any kind of a peace deal, at least for now, kind of improbable?
Ever since we created the Palestinian Authority in 1994, they've got $26 billion. It's twice than the Marshall Plan in the 1940s, which helped to rehabilitate Europe. What they do with the money, they do not create a Palestinian community. They invest a lot of terror, financing terrorist families, financing terrorists in prison in Israel. And of course, we disagree. We have nothing against the Palestinian citizens. We have to live together. And we invest a lot of efforts in order to promote the life of the Palestinian itself. Now, if you compare the life of the Palestinians in the Palestinian Authority to the all Arab states surrounding us, you cannot compare. I mean, their life is much better, and thank God for that. And it is very important for us because we are not against the Palestinians. We want to make sure that we are a secure country, and that's what we do.
Another major issue here in Israel and in the States that President Trump has talked about is moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to right here where we're sitting right now, Jerusalem, the U.S. Embassy. What are your thoughts on that?
I wish he will do it. I see that he postponed the decision for 6 months. I think it would be the best of all of us, because if the Americans will do it, then other embassies will go as well.
Sets the tone. It's a game changer.
Exactly, no doubt about it, and it has a huge significance of doing that, because when you transfer the embassy, you say one thing: Jerusalem is under the sovereignty of Israel. And again, it is very important because people forget, from 1948 to 1967, Jerusalem was divided. She was not secure, she was not safe, and only under the Israeli sovereignty we will be able to maintain the freedom of religion for Christians, for Muslims, for Jews as well. And I think the Americans should do it, and it will be a new direction for the region.
Christians in particular are being beheaded in Syria, in Iraq, in lands where they've lived for thousands of years, but they have safe haven here in Israel. Can you talk more about that? I think that's something, Eli, that Americans really need to know.
Take the Christians in Gaza. Not a lot of people know, but in 2007 they were under persecution from the Hamas regime. And Israel was the only place to absorb those who had to leave. And look what's happened. It's Egypt, Iraq, Syria, other places. And in order to save the Christians, you must support Israel.
There's a lot of talk that Israel's completely isolated. We have BDS, obviously, but that's not the case.
No,
and
not
you're
at
kind
all.
of at the forefront of this. Look, Israel's making inroads around the world. Tell us a bit about that.
There is a big distance between the image and reality. According to the image that mainly spread in the left wing in Israel, left-wingers in socialists in the world, that Israel is under, persecution, BDS and things like that.
An island in and of itself. No
exactly.
friends.
No, but if you take Netanyahu's policy, that's what Netanyahu understood in 2009, that we cannot rely anymore on one continent, on two continents, United States and Europe. Therefore, you must develop the relationship with other continents. China, India, Australia, Africa. In our days he visits today I think he's in Mexico.
He's in Latin America, that's right.
Latin America, all over the place, all over the world. And this is part of the vision of Netanyahu before he came back to power in 2009.
Well, Eli, thanks so much for joining us here today in beautiful Jerusalem. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. You too.
It was great. Thanks again to Eli Hazan for joining us. And folks, be sure to check Eli out on Facebook. He is doing very important work. Well, coming up after the break, we live in lawless times, but there is hope. One California pastor joins us to tell us about the great hope after the break.